Last month, a man brought his truck into a shop in Texas. It ran fine the week before. No warning lights, no smoke, no sound. The bill came back at $11,400. He didn't abuse his truck. He didn't ignore a warning. He just waited. 4 parts. Combined cost, $380. That's what stood between him and a $12,000 disaster. Those 4 parts are exactly what we're talking about today. If you own a diesel, a Power Stroke, a Duramax, a Cummins, you already know. These engines are built different. Built for punishment. Built to last. But here's what most owners don't understand. Diesel engines don't fail with a bang. They don't blow up in a parking lot. They fail quietly, slowly, part by part. And by the time you notice something's wrong, the cheap fix is already long gone. Today, we're covering 4 parts. 4 parts that right now, in this market, are at a critical pricing crossroads. Supply chains are tightening. Tariffs are moving. Raw material costs are climbing. Some of these parts have already seen 20 to 35% price increases in the last 18 months alone. Buying now isn't just maintenance. It is financial protection. Let's get into it. We start with the one that hits the hardest: fuel injectors. Now, before you think, my truck runs fine, I don't need injectors. Stop. That's exactly what the man with the $11,000 bill thought. Here's the truth. Diesel injectors don't just fail. They degrade. The tolerances inside a diesel injector are measured in microns. These components operate at pressures between 20,000 and 30,000 psi. That is not a typo. That is 3 times the pressure of most hydraulic systems. When they start wearing, you get fuel atomization problems. Instead of a fine mist entering the combustion chamber, you get a stream. Raw, unburned fuel. That fuel washes cylinder walls, strips the oil film, and starts a process called cylinder washdown. Slow, invisible, absolutely catastrophic. But here's the scary part. You won't feel it. Not for weeks. Maybe not for months. Your truck will still start, still pull, still feel mostly normal. And then one morning, usually when you're loaded, pulling a grade, in the worst possible situation. White smoke. Or a misfire. Or your injector driver module takes out 2 injectors at once. Now you're not replacing one injector. You're replacing a set. On a 6.7 Power Stroke or LML Duramax, a full set of 8 injectors installed runs $2,800 to $4,500. On a high-mileage Cummins ISX, $5,000 to $7,000, all in. And almost nobody catches this in time. What do you do right now? If your truck has 100,000 miles or more, stop treating injectors as a someday item. Buy a reman set, BossTech, Bosch Reman, a trusted diesel-specific source. Reman sets for the 6.7 Power Stroke are sitting between $900 and $1,400 right now. Duramax LB7 owners, you already know your factory injectors are on borrowed time. A reman set right now runs $1,100 to $1,500. Compare that to $4,500 installed, broken down on the side of I-40, with a load behind you. That's not maintenance. That's math. And this is where most owners get trapped. They see the upfront number. They walk away. They file it under future problem. But the next part we're covering? This one doesn't give you any warning at all. If you've been in the diesel world any length of time, you've heard the stories. Coolant in the oil, oil in the coolant, white smoke that won't stop, an engine that overheated so fast the damage was done before the temperature gauge even moved. That is an EGR cooler failure. Right now, EGR coolers on the Ford 6.0 and 6.4 Power Stroke, GM 6.6 Duramax LMM and LML platforms, even the later 6.7 Cummins, are showing lead times of 8 to 16 weeks from some manufacturers. Not because the parts don't exist, because demand is outpacing supply. Here's how this kills your engine. The EGR system takes hot exhaust gases and routes them back into the intake. The cooler drops that exhaust temperature using engine coolant. Over time, carbon buildup restricts the cooler. Thermal cycling cracks the internal passages. And suddenly, you have a breach. Microscopic, between the coolant passage and the exhaust passage. Wait, it gets worse. That breach starts small. You lose a little coolant. Your overflow tank drops slowly. You top it off without thinking about it. Meanwhile, pressurized coolant is entering the combustion chamber. Combustion gases are entering the coolant. By the time you see white smoke, the engine has already been running contaminated coolant through every cooling passage in the block, the heads, the turbo oil cooler. On a 6.0 Power Stroke, an EGR failure caught early costs $800 to $1,200. The same failure caught late, after the head gaskets are gone, $4,000 to $8,000. With a cracked head, add another $2,000 to $3,500. On top. This next part is what destroys engines completely. The EGR valve. Most people replace the cooler and forget the valve. The valve controls how much exhaust gets recirculated. When it sticks open from carbon buildup, your engine runs lean under load. RPM hunting at idle, power loss on the highway, and in the worst case, runaway combustion. A quality EGR cooler for the 6.0 Power Stroke runs 180 to 350 right now. The valve, 80 to 160. Together, under $500 in parts. Wait for the failure, and that same $500 becomes a $6,000 invoice, with a rental truck stacked on top. The first two parts, those are the headline grabbers, the horror stories. But the next two? These are the quiet killers, the ones that show up in shops every single week. And every week, the owner says the same thing. I didn't even know that was a wear item. Let's talk about something that sounds simple, because the simpler it sounds, the more dangerous the assumption. Your high-pressure fuel pump is a $1,200 to $2,500 part. Every drop of fuel that reaches your injectors goes through this pump first. Protecting it is a filter. Small, often overlooked, costs between $12 and $45. Here's what happens when that filter fails. Debris and water reach the pump's precision internals. Components machined to tolerances of 1 to 3 microns. Contaminated fuel causes cavitation pitting, metal-on-metal contact. That metallic debris circulates through the high-pressure fuel system, straight into your injectors. And this is where most owners get trapped. They replace a failed injector. The shop finds debris. But nobody checks the HPFP inlet screen. The pump is already damaged, still running, barely. It fails 3 months later. The owner thinks it's bad luck. It wasn't bad luck. It was one $20 filter. Now, the fuel filter housing itself. On 6.7 Power Stroke and 6.6 Duramax applications, these housings develop microfractures, thermal cycling, pressure pulses. When one of those cracks opens under pressure, you lose fuel prime. Your truck cranks and won't start. Or worse, fuel weeps toward hot exhaust components. A quality housing for the 6.7 Power Stroke runs 120 to 280 right now. These parts have seen significant price movement from material costs and import tariffs alone. What do you buy right now? A complete filter housing kit, new O-rings, 3 sets of filters for your application. Cummins 5.9 and 6.7 owners also stock up on water separator filters. These are separate from the primary filter, routinely missed at every service interval. Stack 3 services worth on your shelf today. The price difference between buying now and buying after the next tariff cycle hits, it's real. We're already seeing 15 to 20% increases on some filter kits from major distributors. The last part on this list might be the most overlooked of all 4. It doesn't get talked about at the parts counter. It doesn't come up in the forums. And it quietly costs diesel owners tens of millions of dollars every single year in failures that were completely preventable. Your diesel engine produces enormous heat. Not just combustion heat, friction heat. From bearings, from the turboshaft, spinning at 100,000 to 150,000 RPM. From the valve train, the piston skirts, the cylinder walls. All of that heat gets absorbed by your engine oil. And that oil has to be cooled before it goes back into circulation. That job belongs to your engine oil cooler. Here's the problem. Oil coolers in diesel engines clog. Ford 6.0, Duramax LLY, LBZ, LMM, the later ISB Cummins. All of them. Scale deposits, mineral buildup. Every time coolant breaks down, every time DCA gets neglected, deposits form in the small passages of the cooler. As those passages restrict, oil temperature rises. You lose oil viscosity. Bearing surfaces wear faster. And the turbo, the most oil temperature sensitive component in the entire engine, starts showing accelerated wear on the thrust bearing. But here's the scary part. Your oil temperature gauge, if you even have one, won't show this accurately until restriction is severe. On most stock dashboards, you don't even have an oil temp readout. You have no idea this is happening. The oil cooler bypass valve makes it worse. This valve allows cold oil to bypass the cooler at startup. Normal function. But as trucks age, the valve can stick open permanently, meaning oil is always bypassing the cooler, no matter how hot it gets. Your engine runs on uncooled oil every time you push it. On the 6.0 Power Stroke, a clogged oil cooler is directly linked to EGR cooler failure. These are not separate failures. They are a cascade. One feeds the other. Oil cooler replacement on the 6.0 Power Stroke requires partial engine disassembly. Labor alone, $600 to $1,200. The cooler itself, $150 to $350. Total job, $800 to $1,500. That same neglected oil cooler, leading to a spun bearing, $6,000 to $12,000. Engine rebuild, minimum. Duramax owners, LB7 and LLY oil coolers are notorious. Parts are available now at $220 to $380 from quality suppliers. Lead times are already stretching, 4 to 6 weeks on some kits. Buy the complete kit: O-rings, coolant seals, bypass valve. Do not reuse the old bypass valve. That valve fails independently, and it costs you the same labor twice. On any Power Stroke over 80,000 miles, this is a scheduled replacement item, not a wait and see. So now you have the complete picture. 4 parts, 4 failure points. Each one cheap to fix proactively. Each one catastrophic to ignore. Let's look at the numbers side by side, because the numbers will change how you think about your truck. Proactive cost, all 4 parts, right now. Injector set, Reman, $900 to $1,400. EGR cooler and valve, $260 to $510. Fuel filter housing kit, $140 to $320. Oil cooler kit with bypass valve, $220 to $400. Total proactive spend, $1,500 to $2,600. Now let's run the reactive side. 1 cascading failure, high mileage diesel. EGR failure into head gasket failure, $4,000 to $8,500. Injector set plus HPFP replacement, $3,200 to $5,800. Oil cooler failure into bearing damage, $6,000 to $12,000. You are looking at a potential repair bill of $13,000 to $26,000 from parts you could have had on your shelf for under $3,000. And that's before towing, before rental, before downtime, before the job you couldn't make. This is not a close decision. If this is the kind of information you want to stay ahead of, real numbers, real mechanic knowledge, no fluff, hit subscribe, turn on notifications. We do this every week. Not YouTube maintenance theater. Actual insight that keeps money in your pocket. Drop your truck in the comments. Year, make, mileage. I'll get to specific part numbers in the comments or the next video. Here's what I want to leave you with. Every failure we talked about today is predictable. That's not a small thing. Most engine damage isn't bad luck. It isn't a freak accident. It is deferred maintenance, meeting rising part costs at exactly the wrong moment. The man with the $11,000 bill? His injectors had been degrading for 40,000 miles. His EGR cooler had a slow leak for 6 months. His oil cooler was 60% restricted. Every mechanic who sees that truck in hindsight traces the entire failure back to 3 or 4 items. That got pushed off. You have the knowledge now. The parts are available now. The prices today are the lowest they're going to be. You can spend $1,500 proactively or $12,000 reactively. Smart diesel owners don't wait for the smoke. They work before it. Take care of your truck, or eventually, your truck will take care of your bank account. See you in the next one.